This the AMG way, we don't follow the crowd. Quiet money moves, we just say it out loud. Tax-free living, long plays over hype. Build it right once, let the legacy right. We talk ownership.
Yes. Welcome to the AMG Podcast. Wow, we are on a roll with some phenomenal guests, man. I'm the guy, AJ. I'm not AJ. I'm Mondo. I said I'm AJ. Look what I'm doing. I'm here with AJ and Larry. What's up, fellas? How you guys doing, man?
What's happening? What's
going on? So I'm excited. Man. I'm excited about today's guest.
Boy, I'm telling you. We have our wonderful friend that we started chatting with a little bit on LinkedIn. And I had a pleasure of meeting this gentleman. He's out of Chicago. I'm going to let him do all the heavy lifting on who he is and where he's from and what he does, because we are going to have a great conversation today. Without further ado, let's bring him on. AJ, brother Steve, where are you, my friend?
Here I am. Nice.
There he is.
Nice. Mondo, AJ, Larry, glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It's my honor, really.
Yes, indeed. So, Larry, kick us off, man.
Well, let's start with this.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about you, Steve.
Oh, yeah. High level background.
High level.
Yeah. Who are you? Where are you from? Level. You know, all that fun stuff.
Where I'm from. So I was born and raised in Chicago, about a mile away from Wrigley Field. So I'm a diehard Cubs fan, and it's easier now than it was back then. After we have one championship every 140 years or something like that.
Yeah.
But my parents have actually immigrated from what is now modern day Serbia. They came on an American battleship in 1955.
Wow.
And I was raised in the German soccer communities in Chicago, and we played all the ethnic teams. And my dad was a blue collar guy. He was a mold maker, tool and die, and he had his own business. And really, I was encouraged to follow that trend. And the short story of me as a young man is, by the time I was in my early 20s, I realized that I lived my life with very little intention. And I found myself in a spot. I was going to a school that I really didn't want to go to. I was in a trade that I really didn't want to be in. And there was this overall discomfort in my life about the position. And I realized that I hadn't been living with much intention. And at that point in time, and my high school sweetheart broke up with me. That was like the pushed me over the edge of why am I dealing with this regret? And why am I dealing with, even kind of borderline, I'm not a depression kind of guy, but I was there, and I realized that I wasn't bringing the best of me to my life. And I thought, if I'm going to go down, I want to go down with my choices, my effort, my best self. Yep. And so I really started to build the man that sits in front of you today. From that point on, I started to get real intentional about my faith, the man I was and that I bring to a relationship, and what kind of career I would have going forward. So that's kind of the early stage.
Yeah. So that's awesome. This is about to get really good, brother.
Yeah.
You went, we call it going hard in the paint, basketball analogy, right?
Absolutely.
So, and you went there right out the gate. I love it, man. So give us a high level view of what you do for a living. Cause I was going through your LinkedIn profile, man, and you have a diverse list of experiences. And
so when I in my early 20s, I was in a blue collar field, and I realized I just didn't want to be there. I wanted to be out amongst people. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be a business person.
Yep.
And the easiest way I found, I started getting into sales, because I didn't have a lot of money to invest at that time into a business. And I thought that was the way that I could try to control my own destiny. And so I started selling insurance, investments, and I was selling debt consolidation loans at the time, and I ran some offices, I recruited a lot of people, and then I started, once I was able to accumulate enough experience and credibility, I started my own mortgage company in the late 90s, and then experienced the Big Short period of time, which was it was a fun period to build up to, and a really awful period to be in the mix of. And when the Big Short hit, I was all in on real estate. I owned real estate, many different assets in real estate, and my entire business and revenue stream was all centered around the real estate business. And so like in a day, everything just went bust. And so that was a very humbling experience at the time. We talked about this, I think, before, guys, that I said it's a school I never would have chosen. I'm glad I got the PhD in it, but I would have chosen the education. But the lessons I learned in the Valley were you can't get anywhere else.
Right.
Right. The lessons you learn from failure, you cannot get by watching other people fail, because failure does there's a test that you go through as a human being when you go through failure that has you questioning everything you're about, and you wind up coming out of it with the things, at least in my experience, that are most important to you. So that was kind of setting up. Then now, after a time of rebuilding myself, I now run the title insurance operation for the largest privately owned real estate company in Chicago, called Baird & Warner. They've been around since 1855. They're fifth generation. They hid the property records when the great Chicago fire hit. And so they've been in the mix in Chicago for a long time, Chicago born and bred type of thing. And we run the title insurance. And a lot of people don't know what title insurance is, but just a brief explanation of it is you have a buyer and you have a seller, and the buyer has to be able to get the seller's home. They need to prove funds, whether it be cash or loan. And the seller wants to make sure that they get the funds, and they also then their responsibility is to provide clear title from anything that they've had in the past over to the buyer. And the title company sits as kind of the referee of the two, where they bring the two things together, make sure they're all good. They're the fiduciary of the transaction. The seller gets their money, the buyer gets their property, and the title insurance company has done their job. So we facilitate title transactions all across the Midwest.
That's phenomenal, man. So talk to me about, and tell us, what does a typical day look like for you, man? So it's a lot of moving parts, it sounds like. But
yeah. So great question. We right now I'm a part of. We have multiple joint ventures, so I deal with all the stakeholders of the joint ventures, all the owners of the companies, to make sure that the services we provide are delivering for them. So that's the one aspect of it. And then I'm involved in the executive leadership and the strategy of the company, making sure from the P&L to sales strategy to what we're doing and go to market and how we're expanding. So, but I would say when I began, I started with this company in 2014. I really did it. I don't want to say I did it all, but I worked in all the functions that were part of the growth aspect, from door knocking and all that kind of thing. And then built it up and started, offloading and kind of editing the things I did, I that were not as high value, start editing those things out and delegating it to other people, and started to build a team. When I got to the company, we had 18 employees, and now we have 100 plus some, and we had 0 joint venture relationships. And we have 7 joint venture relationships where we provide title services for either real estate brokerages or community banks, and then several other business units that we've built and grown.
That's awesome, man. Busy guy. I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, what you got?
Very busy. So in the title industry, what major shifts are you seeing in your industry?
Well, I would say the biggest things that the title insurance industry, I would say, are concerned with are land fraud and, financial fraud. You have a big asset. You have a lot of monies flying around. You have buyers and sellers that typically they do a transaction, unless you're an investor. You have a transaction every, it used to be 7 years. Now the average person is moving every 11 years. So that time has stretched. Okay. And you have first-time homeowners. It used to be in the 20s, the age of a first-time homeowner. And now you have the first homeowners starting to get into the high 30s and 40s before they purchase their first home. Wow. So in essence, you have the buyer and the seller, which are, not experts in the field of real estate transactions. And so there's a lot of opportunity as they're sending money to the closing via wire or whatever it is for people to step in. We have land fraud and ID fraud and AI has just gotten better and better. So we've spent a lot of our time making sure that everyone's money is safe, including our own. So land fraud is one thing. Another trend that we're seeing is this investor trend that almost 30% of our real estate market right now is made up of real estate investors. Okay. Yeah. And so, a lot of realtors are wondering who moved their cheese, and who moved their cheese is the investors are getting into the game and finding off-market properties and flipping them and renting them and doing the kind, and that, honestly, guys, that was the work that an old-time agent would have done. Knock on doors, find people who wanted to sell before they knew it, And what's happening now is that investors are stepping in and sourcing these properties on their own. So my advice to agents would be to get good at finding those off-market properties, because investors are really good at it. That's where the meat is on the bone, whether it be distressed, divorced, deceased, tax situations that they fall into. And the interesting thing, there's a lot of talk about institutional investors. Trump recently and their Housing Act, said, hey, we're not going to let institutional investors buy up large swaths of property. That's not really the investor pool. The investor pool, 90% of the investor pool in America are people that own less than 10 properties. So you have a lot of mom and pops. You have a lot of entrepreneur-oriented people that are looking for their way to build wealth in America, and they're seeing real estate the prices have risen in real estate this whole time. And so you have this investor dynamic, which we're really active in the investor community, providing title, because title insurance is tricky in that community, and we're expert at it. And so we're providing that service. So those are the trends that, we see now. If I had to boil it down, inventory is tight. Home ownership is happening later in life. And I believe it's for a number of reasons. We can maybe dive into that, my perspective on it. And then the investor community is robust in real estate right now.
We'll dive into it right now. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dive into it. So there's a few reasons, we talk about affordability, and we talk about, that's like the big narrative, affordability, high tax. So here's why people would say, why are people waiting so long? It's because they are talking about it being that you can't afford to buy a home. Why? Prices are rising where people want to live. In major metro communities, those prices have gone up. Now, that is the good story if you hold real estate, right? You want to see prices go up. In fact, I talked to a financial planner that said, there's not a single person that I am estate planner, attorney, said there's not a single person I'm doing estate planning for that has $1 million in net worth and above that does not own real estate. Okay. So that tells you, it's not 1%, 5%, 0%.
Yeah.
And so, in the affordability case, back in the day when my parents got to the country, they obsessed about home ownership. They piled people into the home. Yeah. There was, if you got married, you lived in the upstairs bedroom and whatever. And then as you build and grew your family, that young married person went out and bought their own home, and they went out like that, right? So home ownership was not like in the top 10 list of their priorities. It was one.
It was the priority.
Yeah. And I think for young people, and there's no slight towards it, if it's a 6 or a 7 or an 8 priority for you, it ain't going to happen. It's too big of a purchase, too big of a commitment, too big of an asset,
right,
to just kind of casually go into it. And so that's the first thing. I believe priorities have changed. People are getting married later. They're having kids later, and they want to travel. They want to live life. They want to live in Chicago, where there's a lot of fun happening, all that. Homes are expensive in the city, so rent is the only option. So I would say part of it is affordability and taxes and things like that. The other part of it is it's the want to aspect of it. And that's no slight towards the want to. It's a priority thing. But I think if it's a priority 7 and you're complaining about affordability, you need to get it to priority one, and then everything changes. You figure out how to do it. You run through the brick wall to become a homeowner.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I think it's pretty fascinating. I think this is kind of going down a rabbit hole, Steve, but as we've seen,
love rabbit holes.
Yeah, as we've seen married couples, younger couples, where now we have a 2-person working household.
Yep.
That dynamic you mentioned about, you want to travel, you're job hopping, possibly all these different dynamics, right? And then you have the spouse doing the same thing. Now you've got you got two moving humans here trying to figure out where to set this potential primary purchase as priority one, when both of them are just doing this all the time.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's still trying to find their footing in life.
It's a great point. And, part of me, I think I have 4 daughters. I've raised them now into adulthood. The youngest is 19. And, if I had to coach them, I would say, pick the community you want to live in and then build from there. And so that might be what people are doing. And so they might say, I want to live in a place where I can have kids, feel good about the schools, feel safe, be close to my friends and all that kind of thing. And so I'm going to rent first, then I'm going to buy, then I'm going to this, then I'm going to that. I think it's a fine strategy, but just to couch it as it's not affordable. Well, the home you want may not be affordable. The community you want to live in might not be affordable, but housing is affordable if it's a number one priority. You can get into a house. That's my feeling.
So good, man. So good.
Yeah.
So a couple of things, man. As far as the people that work in your infrastructure, do you have anyone that reports to you? Are you more of a, I know you're not a one-man show, but talk about your staffing and your support, your admin support.
Yeah. So, we do have, I do have admin support. I have sales leaders that report to me, and really all of the joint venture partners are really direct reports in the sense of that I'm responsible for the P&L of those businesses. And then we have our financial person. So, I'm driving the profit and loss of the company with our team. I'm not, I'm just saying I'm responsible for the P&L of the team. We have operations that reports into the growth aspect of our business, and legal, as well as our marketing team as well, and brand management and all that, because we are actually handling the marketing for all the brands. And then we have another offshoot piece, which is kind of complementary, much like the model you guys might have, Mondo, where we have our people, not titles, media aspect, where we are, there's a lot of big underwriters in our business, and we are, I would say we're a medium-sized company now, but when I began, we were a smaller title company. And I thought, how do I build a name in a big metro like Chicago for our title company? And I found that the easiest way to do that was through social media. And so that's when we started our People Not Titles podcast. We started with our market trends, which we do weekly, which we give kind of a positive perspective on the real estate market every single week. And that has built notoriety, name brand, and all those kind of things without spending a lot of money. So that whole media thing is also under my purview.
Well, I got to tell you, it got me, my friend, because I was vacuumed in. I was in.
That's great.
I was loving it. So since you brought it up, I'd love to bring up what I saw earlier. And you did a podcast, and one of the clips that I saw with this gentleman you were talking to, it was bridging the gap, right? Bridging the gap between the agents that are under 50, which majority it sounds like are 50 and above, and maybe even in the title business. But you were talking about, and just in the real estate space in general, how it's pretty much dominated by 50 and up. In the conversation, like, I want to go back and actually see the whole pod. It was very. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah. So there's an aging industry. One beautiful thing, by the way, about real estate is that I don't think there's a real bias towards age. And I think it's one of the beautiful untapped resources of our society is that people who have a bunch of experience, and then right when they're at their peak, they retire. And, there's this plethora of experience, a plethora of knowledge, plethora of, life that they can tap into to offer to the next generation. I think you see that in real estate in a really positive way, that people understand neighborhoods, they understand communities. And so I think it's great. but I also think there's a great opportunity for young people into the space, particularly with technology, AI, fresh thinking, and all that kind of thing. I think that is still and I think there's a great opportunity for young people to partner with that person that has that big book, to partner with a person that maybe doesn't have that striving ability anymore like they used to in their young 20s, 30s, and 40s, to be the legs and the arms and the hustle for them to be able to take over that business. So I think you're going to see a lot of that. We see it a lot in the title insurance business right now. You have a lot of small operators that are in their 50s and 60s that are saying, hey, I've built it, I'm done, I want to sell. And so there's a lot of acquisition activity in the title insurance space as well because of that. So I think there's a way to bridge that gap where you can tap into the experience and still, a young person can bring all kinds of fresh things to the party.
Man, if I'm a young person in the industry right now, AJ, and I heard what Steve just said, you need to rewind right now and take notes.
Absolutely.
He just gave you free game on how to get into the business.
And usually those owners, they're doing like in-house seller financing for the entrepreneurs too as well. Like they like, all right, you turn this over, you may pay a little bit over what the book's value is, but you get it financed by them, you're still making cash, and then you send some of that cash flow to the owner, and then at a certain period of time, you're just taking over the full book of business, and there you go.
Absolutely. I think those opportunities are everywhere in multiple businesses, and probably strongest and hardest in the real estate space. Also, I think if you're in your 40s or 50s and you're kind of, maybe you've got a pension or whatever, and you're thinking, okay, what do I do with the next 30 years of my life? I think real estate is a great place to grow old in. You know what I mean? And to be able to say, hey, listen, I'm going to tap into relationships, expertise, trust, value that I've built over the course of my life. And I'm going to be real expert in real estate, and I'm going to provide value to the community. I think it's a great way to make a really good dollar. I think the average, the top 25 percentile of realtors, we did our 2 market trends ago, we did a whole study on a kind of an agent survey, a larger majority of females in the space than males. So it's a great place. If females feel like they're not getting a fair shake, real estate, you get a better than fair shake. Yeah. And in real estate leadership, by the way, I think there's a strong contingency of females in real estate leadership because there's a lot of females to lead. And so it's a great spot. I'm a big fan of females having 4 daughters and a lovely life. So I watch out for that all the time. And I think it's a great place. And also, real estate doesn't care what your degree is in.
Right.
If your degree is in success and making it happen, this is that's the place to be,
Okay, so again, if I'm older, AJ, and I'm watching this,
I am real estate. I really am.
If I'm older and I'm watching this, and okay, let me give you a little descriptive idea of who I am as an older person.
Sure.
I'm in my late 50s, say probably 60s. I'm in my 60s, approaching retirement. Got a little pension on the way, but I'm a little nervous about, man. You hear those stories about when people retire, they start dying faster because
That's right.
they're nothing to do. And I don't know, do I bring value to the market or to anyone or my community anymore? So maybe I should keep working, but I don't want to keep working. I want to do something different. Steve just gave you something you can do that's providing freedom, serving the community, make phenomenal income, and all the other beautiful things he mentioned. Man, because here's why I bring this up, Steve. And you were in financial services at one point too, right?
Yep.
You still are, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
By the way, I saw your numbers. They're on LinkedIn. Good golly almighty, dude. They're crazy. Anyway, I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
But if I'm sitting here and listening to this, I'm like, you know what? I want to do something in my golden years that I enjoy, where it can be lucrative for me. I'm passionate about this, Steve, because Larry and AJ and I talk to retirees all the time that say these very things to us. They're bored. They would love to get into something, but they just don't know where to put their feet. They would love to supplement their retirement income, but they don't want to work for the quote unquote man, if you will.
Yep.
What you just said is life-giving to someone who's in that season.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Larry, you're in real estate, man. I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
No, I spent maybe 7 years right before 2008. So back then, realtors wasn't giving each other game back then, and the competition was way too strong. It was all about me, mine, I. Right. So in Nashville, Tennessee. So linking up with somebody, or I was blessed to have an investor who actually wanted to invest with me into the city. Right. But without that, I could see that I would have been out in the cold from a business standpoint, because there were no mentors trying to pour back. Yes. So what you're saying today is refreshing. And people
I heard someone say that there's if you can turn the I in illness into a we, you have wellness. And in real estate, there is community, and there are associations. There's other people that are willing to share best practices and those kind of things. Also, if you're retired and you have some means, there is, in fact, but a couple of weeks from now, we'll be posting this podcast on a hard money lender that is an occupational therapist right now, but he has a Roth IRA. He started with $95,000 in his Roth, and you could do self-directed Roth IRAs, and you can now be a hard money lender in an investment community, helping young people who want to build and grow their assets. There's ways to do it in a safe manner where you're not going to lose your money and those kind of things. That's very important. But there are ways to leverage what you have and partner with the next generation, kids, ambitious folks that you see around you, to be able to stay alive mentally, physically, all those kind of things. So big fan of that. I believe it's the greatest untapped resource. In fact, there's a book called Strength to Strength, and it talks about by Albert Brooks, I believe. I have the book upstairs. But anyway, he talks about that strivers can only strive for a certain period of time. And then at one point, when you get into, let's just say your 40s, maybe early 50s, that striver ability becomes less and less. We see it in athletes, we see it in musicians and those kind of things. And you can either go out there and try to keep playing the same old tunes again and hope someone wants to listen to it, or you can shift into that, tapping into the experience of your striving years and now leveraging it. And that never dies, actually. That skill of you tapping into that kind of golden resource, it never dies. And you actually take it with you to the grave. So there's no sense in backing off or slowing down. And anyway, and that's why I think it's important, guys, especially AJ, you look like the youngest guy on the call. I think it's important to make a decision to be happy in your work. And that's what I really decided to do in my young 20s is I just said, I don't want to be one of these people that can't wait to stop. I want to be a person that the work that you're doing is actually energizing you. And that way you're never, people say you never feel like you work a day. That's not true. There's plenty of days I feel like I'm working, but for the most part, your work is energizing you, as opposed to you get to the finish line with your tongue on, you strap your tongue over the line, and then 2 years later, they're having a funeral for you because you're dead, That's not the way to go out.
No, this is incredible, man. So I want to go back to 2008, The Big Short, that whole season. You had everything wrapped in real estate, right? Of course, no one would have thought that this will happen. Of course, you're not only handling your business now, but you're looking for the future. My wife and I are going to have this kind of life from now and on, and then bam, right? So what would you suggest to the young folks coming up, or people who are, just in the game for a while, but they're not really thinking about the future? You've been in financial services and insurance side of things and other areas, securities. What would you suggest as far as preparing for that season, the golden years? Is it all real estate, Steve? Is it mostly in some other, what would you suggest, just generally speaking?
Yeah, I mean, you guys are the financial experts to help people build a plan. And I think without, people who, fail to plan are really planning to fail without knowing about it, right? So that's, I think the first thing is have a financial game plan. I often think about, for 2 years, I lamented from 2008 to 10, what could I have done differently to avoid it? And I feel like, remember that tsunami that hit Indonesia where everyone has to run off the beach? Well, I felt like I was debating on, if I had my chair positioned differently on the beach, would my beach chair have been washed away? Yep, everyone's chair got washed away. And that was a calamity, but many people face disruption in their life. And some of it is health. some of it is financial, some of it is relational. And what you wind up having left at the end of the calamity is who you really are. Okay.
Boy, say that again.
Yeah.
Say that
what
again.
you wind up having left at the end of the calamity is who you really are.
Yeah.
And I think if you are not certain about that, you wind up losing everything, including yourself. And so, for instance, in that period of time, my identity was wrapped up. I was people recognized me as an entrepreneur, a rainmaker, a business mover and shaker, and all those kind of things. That was a part of my identity. If it would have been all of my identity, I would have been done. And many people have done, that's why people jump off of buildings, because they lost their entire identity. Is all their eggs were in that basket. But what I was a man of God. I was a family man. I was a father. I was a husband. I was a son. I was a friend. And what I realized is when I lost that piece of it, I can't just obsess about it. I have to lean into the things I still have and still be that person. And so I leaned into service. I leaned into those things. And still, I knew what happens is then if you're a business person, what you'll find is that business person, that salesperson, those skills you have, you didn't lose those. You just lost, the business piece of it. That's at least in my experience. And so, for instance, if you go through a divorce, you might go, oh, no, I lost out. No, you didn't. You lost a woman or a man, but you're still the person that you are. You still have a lot to offer. And so I think it is going back, taking stock, having gratitude for the things that are left and building from that. So that's the first thing. But I think, being intentional about from a financial standpoint, being intentional about your skill and your ability to add value. A lot of people want pay or want this or want that, but are you adding value? Because if you add value, the pay will come. You will always get paid more than the value you bring,
Absolutely. Yep.
So that I think if you can lean into building yourself and your value, and you are the greatest asset in your life, to build that, you will always have a place to hang your hat, and I was worried I wasn't going to have a place, but I found out there was always a place for someone with my skills and abilities, because I was very intentional about building those.
And you're also very open about your story. And I really truly believe that's probably the fuel behind your success, man, is your transparency and your willingness to go there with people. Because honestly, you know how it is, Steve. People don't want the BS, man. Like they want the real deal. And when you speak, you are real deal. We can tell it's genuine. It's not disingenuine. Like you are 100% being yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I try to be.
Yeah, man. And I honor you for that, man. I think that's we felt that on the first, little call we had. We did. I told Larry, I said, man, I got a new friend. I think I like this dude. Like his energy was on point. You could tell you got a great spirit. Well, we knew you're a man of God.
Well,
didn't even have to ask you.
Well, it's a funny thing too that, by the way, I wrote a book about my spiritual journey. It's called Finding My Way Back Home. And I wrote it in 2019. And I actually wrote it to a guy. I got reacquainted with a guy that I was an altar boy with in high school or in a grade school. And lost track of him. And he wound up through a chance set of meetings. This guy said, "Oh yeah, my business partner is this guy," and I identified him as this altar boy, and he became a multi-billionaire. And so I met with him for lunch, and we started talking. He was a very cut and dry guy. We got right into faith, and he was very vulnerable about just being kind of in a lost place. And so I started to write him my journey kind of out of religion. It's not just, I'm not anti-religion, but my journey out of religion into real connection with God. And I wrote one chapter and the next chapter and the next chapter and the next chapter. And it wound up that I started sending out these chapters to family, friends, and all this kind of thing. And ultimately I put together a book. But one of the elements of the book I talk about is this business loss. And what the scripture, Jesus said, unless a seed die, that fall to the ground and die, it can't be fruitful. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but the point was we're all going to experience some kind of death in our life. Death of we talked about relationship, business, whatever it is, and that is where your life is. That is where your life is. And what came to mind then I was writing that is, if you think about Christ when he rose from the grave, he was like, hey, here are the wounds. He didn't hide the wounds. And so what I found is if I wasn't so ashamed of my wounds, they were actually at the point that I could meet people, because so many people are hurting and they know, hey, I was hurting too. I was biting the carpet on my knees, wondering what was going to happen. And there's life after that. There is the resurrection, and so I've been able to help way more people from my loss than I have from my success.
Okay, hold on. Right, see, right there we go.
Yeah,
man. Yes,
it has been the greatest gift of my life to go through the loss. But again, I would not have unwrapped that gift on my own. You know what I mean? I went kicking and screaming. I was holding on to everything that was torn away from me. But what I realized was I just need to let it go, and whatever's supposed to stay will be here. And it was. And, and I'm thankful for that.
For some people who are listening to this and they're like, yeah, that sounds great, but I'm afraid. Or I don't want to do it by myself. Or I hear you, but I don't know you, Steve, and I don't know anyone locally that sounds like you. A lot of excuses.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? A lot of excuses. And I would be lying if I said at one point in my life, in my journey, if I didn't say those things, I'd be lying. If I said, yeah, I didn't say that, no, I'm lying. I did.
Yeah,
I did. Yep. What would you suggest, man? Like, what does one do personally in the business? You hit the wall, you hit another wall, you hit a speed bump, you fall down, you get, hit the chin, whatever. Someone who's trying to start in the business, who's trying to restart in life, just give us a nugget, man, because this is bigger than just, the title business.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. So first off, I was a man full of fear. Even when I had a lot, I was afraid to lose it. I had fear of lack, even though I had no lack. So fear will not be quenched by your circumstances. Fear is a vibe that you give off. And what happens is when you're fearful, if you've ever seen this, I'll send you this chart of kind of like there's a way to measure the vibration, and we actually emit an energy, and there's a way to measure it. And fear is on the low end of the scale, and then you have various things, but enlightenment would be at the top, which is really intense connection with God. Then you have love and compassion, those kind of things. So those are all states of being. And what I realized was that once I lost everything, the fear of loss went away. There's nothing, you lost it all. So there's no, you know what I mean? Right. There's no, if you're afraid of losing it all, that's done. Now what are you afraid of?
Yeah. Been there, done that. I know what it's like.
Never done that. Yeah. And what I realized was that joy, peace, and, all the kind of fruits of the spirit are completely independent from your circumstances. And they can be achieved with presence. And when you have presence and connection with that still small voice, people call it the Holy Spirit, God, the divine, when you make that connection, your state instantly changes. And when your state changes, you are now a tuning fork for a whole different set of circumstances. And so that's what I would say is change your state. Most people sit in fear because they're hoping for a different circumstance. Embrace your circumstances and just proclaim, this is happening for me, not to me. And now I'm going to go from there. That's easier said than done, but that is a secret, guys.
It sure is. You lose a deal. You heard what Steve said. Someone passes away. You heard what Steve said. Your company collapses. You heard what Steve said.
That's right.
Like, oh my gosh, dude, this is like church for me. So I thank you, Steve.
Right.
Yeah. And, and actually we're all spiritual beings. So, if you're sitting here, you're Muslim, you're a Buddhist, whatever, it doesn't matter. you can make a connection with your creator, and that creator will reveal themselves or himself, who he really is. But once you make that connection, you reach out. There's a scripture, right? If you ask for a piece of bread, I'm not going to give you a stone. So when you want food from your Father, which is that heavenly food, it's going to be delivered to you. And what that looks like practically in my life is just kind of stillness in the morning where you recharge, reset, reconnect, then a time kind of intention of who am I trying to be, who am I called to be? And then in the evening, kind of the same thing, that stillness, that time of gratitude and all that. And, realizing this fact, where you are supposed to be is waiting for you. You're the only person that can take that chair. And, and so to elevate yourself to that point and know that all of the universe and God is waiting for you to shift so that the power of God can shift in your life. That's my reality, is that once you decide that and you start walking out day by day, don't think about the future. Oh, what am I going to do when I'm 85? And listen, just handle today. And then the next day and the next day, and start putting together. Hey, Cubs had 2 10-game winning streaks and they're on top of the division. They're not thinking about how they lost to the Braves yesterday. Okay. So put together 8 or 10 good days, and you'll have a bad day, and then 8 or 10 more good days, and then you'll have a bad day. But just live with intention day to day, and don't feel like you have to plan and micromanage your whole life.
Man, AJ, Larry, y'all better jump in, because I've got you better jump in, because I've got some stuff.
Yeah, I love that theory, because that's a theory I live by. It's be 1% better than what you were yesterday. And it almost goes back to that saying too. It's just like, stop over and go. I think it's Bill Gates. Is like you overthink of the things that you can accomplish in a year, but you underthink what you can accomplish in 10. And it kind of goes that simple thing where it's just like, you just take one step at a time. And if you focus on just being 1% better than yourself yesterday, 1% better than yourself the other day, look at a stretch of time, that gradual increase is hockey sticked.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so guys, and I think that in terms of financial planning and all that, I think all of that has to align with the big intention of your life. Mother Teresa didn't have a financial plan, and she probably wasn't upset about it. But if you're a business person, you have to have a financial plan.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. If you want to leave something to your family, you have to. So it depends on who you want to be. If you want to die with nothing, then great. Just keep doing what you're doing, whatever it is. But it's who do you want to be, and then start stepping into that. And in that quiet and stillness, you'll start to figure out not just who you want to be, but who the real you is, and build off of that. Yeah. Because everything is inside of you. The kingdom is within, and you are the person on that throne. And that throne for most people is unoccupied. Mm-hmm. I'm writing a book and finishing up on it. It's called The Most Valuable Piece of Real Estate on the Planet. And I believe that you are the most valuable piece of real estate on the planet, but most of it goes unclaimed. It's unclaimed assets, because they're waiting for something outside to happen that is going to change the inside state. And it is an inside job working out.
This is beautiful, man. This is beautiful.
Put me on that pre-order.
Yeah,
absolutely. I got one sale, AJ.
Yeah.
You got 3 sales. You got 3.
You got 3 all day.
Yeah.
Willis, what you got, man?
So what I like to say is,
go ahead.
People look in the mirror, they don't see themselves. So who do you see when you look in the mirror? Imposterism.
Absolutely.
So you have to break that thing down. So like you said, it comes from the inside out.
Absolutely.
Who are you on the inside will determine who you can see in the mirror.
Yeah, Larry, and that imposter syndrome is real. And hey, 5 minutes before I'm getting onto this thing, I'm thinking to myself, do I have anything even worth saying? You get those doubts creep in, and then you just say, you know what? I'm going to bring my best. I'm going to bring what I got. And that's all I can bring. You know what I mean? And the funny thing is, right, you think about the fish and the loaves, that boy had that little lunch. He didn't have all the fish, and he didn't have all the loaves that were needed. He just had the lunch. And what I've decided is I'm going to bring my lunch every day and let God do the multiplying.
There you go.
And that's what happens when you bring your best. You will start to see the favor of the universe and God in your life. And I'm not talking about money just piling, any of those things. Small things every single day will, small little breadcrumbs on the trail will show up, and you'll go, man, this is where I'm supposed to be. And boy, that meaningful conversation and that person I met or whatever it is, it's more than just about the money, but money is also included.
Yes.
You know,
this is so good, man.
Yeah.
Oh man. I love it when it takes a good left turn. Right.
Wow.
Because I mean, one, transparency takes it there. You know, Steve, we meet with a lot of people and some great folks that go deep. You definitely have gone there, man. And I know we could go deeper. I know if we had the time, man, we can go really, really deep. But
yeah. And you know, to that point, Mondo, I'll say this too. I want to be a really good businessman. You know what I mean? And you know, a lot of times you have people that have strong faith, and they kind of hide behind that to fail in business, financially, in life. And they're just kind of like, but I'm a good person or whatever it is. You know what? And here's one thing that it will stick out like a sore thumb. A person who will live their faith while they're winning in business and while they're losing, but while they're winning in business. So that, you know, if you can get to a point and to a platform, keeping your authentic self, you will have a powerful testimony for everyone around you. So this is, faith is not something to hide behind and not be a pro, not build in, not be practical, pragmatic, financially sound, all those things. No, you can do it all. You really can. And so, but if there's a choice, you know, make sure you keep yourself. You know what I mean? If there's a choice and you see that people get to that point and all of a sudden that road's like, ooh, I take that road. I might have to cut a few corners. I might have to, you know, cheat or whatever it is, but I can get there faster. And then I can get myself right and people hear me talk. It doesn't work that way.
Nope.
You know what I mean? And that's the delicate balance that you see, is that as people start to build and grow, they get more recognition for financial success than they do for family success or any of those things. And they wind up oversteering. Yeah. And I've been very careful not to do that, but to keep the main things, you know?
Oh my God. I feel like we need to have like a series with Steve. You know what I'm saying? This is so good, man. You know, I found in sales, and I know it's a life thing, but you know, in the field that we're in, and it seems like imposter syndrome is a even more real thing. Because it's a, you know, who do I have to be for them to like me? Who do I have to be for this family for them to want to do business with me? Who do I want my peers to think I am? It's like you're asking this question, you know, and to your point, God has given us the gift of being ourselves, but we run from it. No one can be Mondo like Mondo. No one can be AJ like AJ. No one can be Steve like Steve. But
that's right.
But then we run away from it when that's the easiest thing to do.
Yes. You know, and I think one of the things that one of the reasons that is as a young person in business, I really I obsessed about the outcome. How will this turn out? And I've transferred that. I'm concerned about the outcome, but what I do know is if I bring my best self and I am on top of my game, the outcome will, and I'm on the path I'm supposed to be, the outcome will take care of itself.
Yes.
And so if you can stay true to that and have faith that the outcome, you leave it up to God for the outcome, but you bring your best self. Like you said, Mondo, there's only one Mondo, one AJ, one Larry. You can bring that best. The outcome is going to be exactly how it's supposed to be for you. It's going to turn out exactly how it's supposed to be.
Man, I'm going to ask you now live. Can we do another one once the book comes out?
Absolutely. I'd love to.
Yeah. I think it'd be great, man. I mean, this is such a great conversation. It helps a lot of people, not just in business, but in life. You've given us so many nuggets. I've learned stuff, man. I love it.
Yeah, that's great.
And you know, being able to learn from you, man. You know, where can people
guys, here's how I feel. How I feel is if we're the only 4 people that hear this, I feel great about this conversation.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because you guys, the energy, the transfer, all that, it's been amazing. For anyone else, if there's one more person hits the like button,
that's it.
Fabulous. Doesn't have to happen for me though. This
Absolutely.
This is awesome.
So where can people find you, man? We know you're in Chicago. As far as let's talk about the pods. Obviously your LinkedIn, but give everybody kind of the lowdown on where we can find you, man.
Yeah, so the name of our podcast is People Not Titles, because it's kind of a play off the title industry. Mm-hmm. And so it's you can go to peoplenottitles.com and find all of our podcast information. Honestly, I believe we provide the best 30 minutes in real estate news from a perspective of a person that I'm giving you right now, from a spiritual perspective. We take the narratives and turn them and say, hey, listen, here's how you should be thinking about this in order to succeed in real estate. We're not a run from real estate group. If you're in real estate, there's going to be bad news, there's going to be good news, and here's how you succeed. That's market trends every week. So you can subscribe. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, and those kind of things. And then our company, if you landtrustagencynetwork.com, that's our company. It tells you all about us, about Land Trust, and about our joint venture partners and all that kind of thing. And guys, I'm honored to be a part of the podcast. I've also seen your stuff, guys, and I think it's great what you're pumping out, and the work you're doing to help people get, on track financially is impressive. And I see you're bringing the right heart into it.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any last words, AJ, Larry, for Brother Steve before we roll out?
Yeah, man. As always, I usually like to end this. If we have, again, like you said, if one person takes a nugget out of this. So if you're hearing right now, they've lasted these last 50 minutes and they're just looking for one little thing to push them over, especially on the entrepreneurial trail from your track record. What is one little tidbit that would give them over the hump that they might be going through mentally?
You have what it takes. It's all inside of you. The acorn has the tree inside of it. You would never guess it by looking at it. You would never say, no way,
dude. I never thought about that.
No way is there a tree inside this.
Yeah.
And, I don't care who says it, there's a tree inside. And the same thing for you. It's all inside of you. You need to get in the right environment, around the right folks, around the right people, get planted. And guess what? You are going, sure as an acorn is going to grow into an oak, you are as well. It's all inside of you. It really is.
Man, Steve, you're the bomb, brother. Appreciate you, man. We appreciate you, man. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, AJ. Thank you, Mondo. It's really my honor and privilege.
Absolutely, my friend. Hey, from the fellas here at the AMG Podcast, hope you enjoyed. Definitely like, subscribe, leave a comment. Definitely reach out to Steve and the crew and inquire, questions, thoughts, whatever it is, investing. If you have questions about the business, I'm sure, as you can see, he'd be more than willing to help you out. So with that said, we will see you guys next time on the next episode of the AMG Podcast. You guys be good. See you.
Thank you, guys.
Peace.
This the AMG way, we don't follow the crowd. Quiet money moves, we just say it out loud. Tax-free living, long plays over hype. Build it right once, let the legacy right. We talk ownership.